All right, let's jump right into this explainer. I want you to close your eyes and picture the scene with me. It's May 14, 1988. We've got a gorgeous, sun-drenched Saturday in London, and exactly 98,203 fans are absolutely packed into the legendary Wembley Stadium. The air is literally buzzing with anticipation for the FA Cup final, which, is the absolute pinnacle of English football. But what those nearly 100,000 fans were about to witness, it wasn't just another football match. No way. They were about to see history completely rewritten in what still stands as the most impossible upset in the history of the sport. Now, to really wrap our heads around the sheer magnitude of this upset, we can't just look at the final score on a piece of paper. We have to look at the two radically different worlds that were colliding on that pitch. This wasn't just a game between two football clubs. It was a massive clash of cultures, of mentalities, and of just entirely different approaches to the beautiful game. Section 1. The Culture Club. Liverpool's dominance. So, in the 1980s, Liverpool they were practically untouchable. They were the undeniable, incredibly polished kings of English football. They'd just been crowned First Division champions, locking in an incredible 17th league title. I mean, we're talking about a squad absolutely loaded with international stars, guys like John Barnes, Peter Beardsley, and Alan Hansen. And they played this beautifully exciting, flamboyant, highly technical style of football. Going into this match, they were massive favorites. They were chasing a historic league and cup double, a feat so incredibly rare it had only happened a handful of times in over a century. Honestly, everyone, and I mean everyone, expected them to absolutely steamroll their opponents. Section 2. The Crazy Gang. Wimbledon's culture. So, pivot over to their opponents. Wimbledon. This was a club that had only been in the Football League for 11 years, miraculously scraping their way all the way up from the 4th Division. But it was their off-pitch culture that truly defined them. Wimbledon's dressing room was, quite frankly, an absolute madhouse. Practical jokes and wild initiations were just a normal Tuesday for these guys. Players were stripped and forced to walk home naked. Personal belongings were routinely set on fire. Players were literally tied to the roofs of cars and driven down the A3 highway. Vinnie Jones, one of their star midfielders, famously said you either grew a backbone quickly there or you dissolved as a man. Oh, and get this. The day before the biggest match of their lives, manager Bobby Gould actually caught his players at a nearby bar. When he told them they'd have to pay for their own drinks, they literally sprinted to the next pub. The entire team allegedly woke up on the morning of the FA Cup final with hangovers. You can't make this stuff up. Unsurprisingly, their chaotic, super physical style of play got heavily mocked by the media and fellow professionals. Gary Lineker even dismissively joked that the best way to watch Wimbledon was on CFAX, the BBC's old text-based info service, just because their actual football was supposedly so hard on the eyes. But here's the thing. All that constant derision, it only fueled them. It forged this unbelievably fierce, intimidating, us-against-the-world mentality. Opposing teams were genuinely terrified of playing them. Section 3. The ultimate mismatch. David versus Goliath. So we've got this ultimate David versus Goliath setup, right? And the pre-match taunting was absolutely relentless. Liverpool's Alan Hansen boasted to the BBC that he couldn't spot a single Wimbledon fan in the stadium, basically claiming it was a sea of purely Liverpool supporters. Meanwhile, Liverpool's captain Steve McMahon was busy needling Wimbledon's Vinnie Jones in interviews, loudly claiming he wouldn't fall for any of Jones's aggressive little tricks. Wimbledon was basically viewed as a joke that was about to be profoundly embarrassed on the national stage. Section 4. The historic penalty save. The defining moment. But right from the kickoff, Wimbledon made it crystal clear they weren't going down without a fight. Just 7 minutes in, Vinnie Jones delivered this brutal, massive, tone-setting tackle that absolutely leveled Steve McMahon. Jones later said that was the exact moment they won the game, because it let the Giants know the crazy gang was in the building. Then, out of nowhere, in the 37th minute, Wimbledon strikes. A free kick from Dennis Wise finds Lawrie Sanchez, who heads a looping ball right past Liverpool's Bruce Grubbler. 1-0 to the underdogs. Then, at halftime, get this, Wimbledon manager Bobby Gould was so terrified his team was going to crack under the massive pressure that he ordered all his players into an ice bath just to shock their systems and keep them hyper-focused. But the ultimate climax of this explainer, and the match itself, hit right on the hour mark, the 60th minute. Wimbledon's Clive Goodyear makes a challenge on Liverpool striker John Aldridge inside the box. The referee blows his whistle. Penalty to Liverpool. Man, it felt so inevitable. The sleeping giant had finally woken up, and they'd just been handed a golden lifeline to tie up the game. John Aldridge grabs the ball and steps up to the spot. Standing right in his way is Wimbledon's captain and goalkeeper, Dave Beasant.
Now, what's really fascinating here is that Beasant had actually been intensely practicing against Aldridge's specific penalty technique in the weeks leading up to the final. He knew exactly what the Liverpool striker liked to do. But, knowing it and actually executing it under the crushing, suffocating weight of a Wembley final, those are two very, very different things. 0. Before May 14th, 1988, that was the exact number of goalkeepers who had ever saved a penalty in a Wembley FA Cup final. Literally 0. It had never been done in the history of the competition. If Beasant failed here, Liverpool would undoubtedly seize all the momentum and just absolutely crush the exhausted Outlaws. Aldridge starts his run-up. He strikes the ball, and Beasant, totally trusting his preparation, leaps dynamically to his left. He extends his arms, and he pushes the ball away. The save is made. This right here is Beasant's historic penalty save 1988, an absolutely unprecedented milestone. He became the very first goalkeeper to ever save a penalty in a Wembley FA Cup final. The momentum shift in the stadium was seismic. Wimbledon's belief just completely skyrocketed, and Liverpool, they were left entirely stunned. Section 5. An immortal upset. The Outlaws hold on. Riding the high of that incredible save, the Outlaws actually held on to win 1-0. Let's just look at the insane legacy of that sunny afternoon. Wimbledon secured the first and only major trophy in their club's entire history. By doing so, they completely derailed Liverpool's bid for the double. And Dave Beasant, he didn't just make history with this penalty save. By walking up those famous Wembley steps, he became only the second goalkeeper in history to lift the FA Cup as a team captain. The only other person to ever do it was Major William Merriman for the Royal Engineers, and that was all the way back in 1875. The absolute improbability of this whole thing was perfectly captured by legendary BBC commentator John Motson. As the final whistle blew, he delivered one of the most famous lines in broadcasting history, just full of total awe. He said, "The crazy gang have beaten the culture club." And you know what? That nickname stuck forever. It perfectly captured the chaotic, fearless spirit of a team that absolutely refused to bow to football royalty. Which brings us to a final thought for you to chew on. We so often assume that the team with the most polished skills, the highest budget, and the best pedigree is always going to win out, right? But the 1988 FA Cup final forces us to ask, can sheer grit, unyielding camaraderie, and a total refusal to be intimidated actually topple elite talent? Well, Dave Beasant and the Crazy Gang proved that on any given Sunday, or, well, in this case, Saturday, the impossible is just waiting to happen. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning the odds, and I'll catch you next time.